Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have the case of Keisha Rodríguez. Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz was born on November 6, 1993, in the city of San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico, and at the time of the events, she was 27 years old. She was the oldest daughter of the marriage between Keishla Ortiz and Jose Antonio Rodríguez, who had 3 children in total, with Vera Liz and Jonathan being Keishla's younger siblings. Once their children were adults, Keila and Jose eventually decided to separate. Although, of course, as always, the family stayed in touch, still trying to keep that bond strong. The parents moved to different homes. Keila, the mother, moved to Orlando, Florida in the United States, but she never lost touch with her 3 children. Meanwhile, Keishla and her siblings stayed in San Juan, each living with their respective partners and starting their own families. All of them, except for Keishla, who lived alone, independently, with her 2 little dogs, who were her pride and joy. She was a very cheerful person, extremely humble, and had a great compassion for animals. She always tried to help them as much as she could, and whenever she found a helpless animal, she just couldn't ignore it. In fact, this love she felt for them led her to get a job at a pet spa, where she could be close to the animals she loved so much. Keishla lived really close to her sister Vera Liz in a neighborhood called Villa Esperanza. The 2 of them had a really close relationship, so much so that Keishla and her partner, Felix Verdejo, with whom she'd been in a relationship for 11 years, were chosen as the godparents for Vera Liz's young son. And not only was Felix her brother-in-law, he was also her husband's cousin. But beyond all of this, there was a particular situation that apparently the whole family knew about. Felix Verdejo was married to another woman and had a young daughter who was about 3 years old. But to better understand this sort of love triangle that existed, let's take a look at who Felix Verdejo is and everything that was behind his relationship. Felix Gabriel Verdejo Sanchez is a professional boxer, born in San Juan, Puerto Rico on May 19, 1993. After an amateur career, Felix gained more fame because he went to the London Olympic Games in 2012, representing his country. And in addition, he won the WBO Latino lightweight title from 2015 to 2017, where he earned the nickname El Diamante, the Diamond, because of the bright future this athlete was forging for himself as a professional boxer. Felix and Keishla met in high school, where they fell in love and started a relationship that, after a couple of years, became completely toxic, full of breakups and reconciliations. During this time, Felix apparently decided to start a parallel relationship with Elise Marie Santiago Sierra, a young woman 4 years younger than him. It's said he had a relationship with her at the same time, because in reality, he never fully broke things off with Keishla. In fact, according to Verez and Kayla, the young woman's entire family knew about this and always told her to leave that man for good because he didn't deserve her. Years went by and the situation stayed the same. So much so that in 2016, Felix got married, not to her, but to Elise Santiago. And in 2018, they had their little daughter. Despite all this, Felix kept seeing Keishla, who even had a diamond-shaped tattoo on the back of her neck in honor of his boxing nickname. Up until that point, it wasn't clear if Elise knew about her husband's extramarital affair. Things went on as usual until April 2021, when Keishla found out some news that would change her life. She was pregnant. Keishla was expecting a child with Felix Verdejo, and she was very happy about it, because regardless of whether he wanted to take responsibility or not, she was determined to go through with the pregnancy, since becoming a mother was one of her greatest dreams. However, she didn't tell Felix right away. Instead, she decided to wait until she was 1 month pregnant to share the news. So on April 28, 2021, Keishla told her mom and her sister, who, of course, were happy for her at that moment. Unlike Felix, who didn't take it well and suggested she terminate the pregnancy. Of course, as I mentioned, Keishla wanted to be a mother, so this was something she would never do. And that's how we get to the day everything happened. It was April 29, 2021, and Keishla had to be at her job at the veterinary spa at 8 in the morning. Every day, she would call her mother, who was in Orlando, very early in the morning, and then take her dogs out for a walk. This day was no different, except that she had an appointment before going to work. Keishla told her mom that before heading to work, she was going to meet up with Felix, since he wanted to see proof that she was really pregnant. And her mother just told her to be very careful, since this guy had asked her to terminate the pregnancy, something her mother really didn't like at all. That's how the morning of April 29th went by, and Keishla never made it to work. Her boss, surprised when she didn't show up, decided to call her, but when he didn't get an answer, he called her sister, Veriliz, who told him she hadn't heard from her either. Immediately after, her sister got in touch with their mother, who, of course, instantly knew something had happened, and decided to buy a plane ticket to go to where her children were. Kayla Ortiz landed in Puerto Rico around 6 in the evening, and the first place she went was an abortion clinic in San Juan because she suspected that maybe Verdejo had threatened her daughter in such a way that he forced her to end her pregnancy, since, being a public figure, he didn't want any scandal that could affect his career. Unfortunately, when Keishla's mother arrived at the clinic, it was closed, so it was very unlikely that her daughter had been there. After that, Kayla went to her daughter's house to see if she could find any clue about Keishla's whereabouts. When she arrived, the first thing she noticed and found extremely strange was that her daughter's dogs didn't have any food. Let's remember that Keishla was a huge animal lover and that her pets meant everything to her. Her usual routine before going to work, which her mother knew very well, was to take her dogs out for a walk and then leave them enough food so they'd have plenty until she got back. This made her think that her daughter hadn't come back home after her meeting with Felix to take care of her pets like she always did, and on top of that, she hadn't shown up at work. So, with her suspicions growing stronger, Keishla's mother went with her family to the police station in Camilo, Quintana to report her disappearance. The family moved heaven and earth to find Keishla, and news of her disappearance quickly went viral on social media, especially since she was a pregnant woman. It was even surprising how quickly the police acted, immediately taking stronger measures and issuing a pink alert, which is used when an adult woman goes missing or is believed to have been kidnapped. If up to this point Felix Verdejo had gone unnoticed, that changed when Keishla's parents and siblings gave statements to the media, directly accusing him of the young woman's disappearance. Keishla's mother said the following, "What do I think? Him," referring to Verdejo, "he called her to meet him where he was training. He should speak up and tell the truth because he has a daughter and a mother. He should think about my pain." Everyone was clear that there was a main suspect, but the priority was to find Keishla Rodríguez, who at that time was 1 month pregnant. Because the pink alert was issued immediately, the investigation was able to start quickly, and the first thing they did was tap Keishla's phone line, confirming that she had communicated with Felix Verdejo on the day she disappeared. And not only that, but by tracking her cell phone data, they were able to identify that both her phone and Felix were near the Teodoro Moscoso Bridge, which crosses the San Jose Lagoon. With this information, the police would direct their investigation. The next day, April 30th, the police found Keishla's vehicle, a dark gray Kia Forte, which was the car she used to go meet Felix Verdejo. This vehicle was found on a lot in the Canavanas area, and inside they found her wallet with some cash and a few other belongings of the young woman. While it's true these items didn't provide any further relevant information for the investigation, they did indicate that the motive for her disappearance wasn't a robbery or an attempt to steal her belongings. The police summoned Verdejo to testify at the San Juan Criminal Investigation Center, but after almost 30 minutes of questioning, they couldn't get a single word out of him. May 1st arrived, and a shocking discovery was made just 2 days after the disappearance. At that moment, the lifeless body of a woman was found in the San Jose Lagoon. And while all the procedures to identify her body were being carried out, Felix Verdejo became the center of criticism and accusations on social media. His silence, instead of clearing his name, only made people grow more suspicious of him with every passing second. At this point in the investigation, everyone knew that he was married and at the same time was having an extramarital affair with Keishla Rodríguez. What's more, his wife, Elise Santiago, was called to testify, and during her statement, she admitted to being aware of this second relationship, but she was not considered a person of interest in the case. At 2 in the afternoon that Saturday, May 1st, Keishla's family was informed about the discovery of a body in the San Jose Lagoon. And even though they still held out hope that it wasn't the missing young woman, the body had certain features that confirmed it was her. She was a blonde woman between 20 and 30 years old who had a diamond tattoo on her back. The authorities sent the body to the Puerto Rico Institute of Forensic Sciences, where after an analysis and comparison of dental records, what everyone already suspected was confirmed. The lifeless body found belonged to Keishla Rodríguez. The next day, continuing with the investigation timeline, in the early hours of Sunday, May 2nd, the police seized Felix Verdejo's vehicle. Because thanks to the geolocation of the cell phones, it was possible to verify more or less where he had been. This way, they were able to review footage from security cameras near the Teodoro Moscoso Bridge and identified a highly suspicious vehicle that approached the area twice over the course of April 29th. That car looked very similar to the Dodge Durango SUV owned by the boxer. So, with every passing moment, a new clue brought them closer to Verdejo. And as if that weren't enough, a new person became implicated in the investigation. A protected witness confirmed that Verdejo hadn't acted alone, but had an accomplice. At first, the name of this individual, who also allegedly took part in the terrible act, was unknown, but later his identity was made public. It was Luis Cadiz Martinez who had told the police, and later the FBI, who eventually took over the investigation, how the events had supposedly unfolded. Based on his account, the federal prosecutor's office put forward a hypothesis. Meanwhile, Felix Verdejo turned himself in to the police that same Sunday night, May 2nd, and the next day, Monday the 3rd, Verdejo appeared virtually before federal magistrate Camille Velez from the Guaynabo prison, where prosecutor Jonathan Gottfried requested that the boxer be held without bail. Up to this point, the FBI was charging him with carjacking, which can be translated as the violent theft of a vehicle resulting in the death of a person, as well as kidnapping and the intentional murder of an unborn child. With the investigation, according to the account given by Luis Cadiz, the other person involved, along with the results of the autopsy, the prosecution was able to put forward the following hypothesis. Felix Verdejo contacted Luis Cadiz on April 27th to ask for his help to end Keishla Rodríguez's pregnancy. They planned everything they would do, and on April 29th, Verdejo contacted Keishla to meet up, supposedly to check the results of the lab test. Each person went in their own vehicle. Felix and Luis in Verdejo's Dodge Durango SUV, and Keishla in her gray Kia Forte. Once at the meeting point, Keishla got into Verdejo's vehicle, and after an argument, the boxer hit the victim in the face and injected her with a substance he had bought at a drug-selling spot in the Luis Lorenz Torres housing project located in Santurce. After this, Verdejo and Cadiz tied Keisha's hands and feet with wire and placed a cement block on her body. Then they put her in her own car and drove to the Teodoro Moscoso Bridge. Once there, they took her out of the car and threw her into the water from one side of the bridge. And, if that wasn't enough, Luis Cadiz also states in his sworn statement that Felix Verdejo shot at Keishla from the bridge, but didn't manage to hit her. After this, they went to leave Keisha's car in a vacant lot in the Pueblo Indio area of the La Central neighborhood in Canovanas, which was recovered the day after her disappearance, after local residents were able to identify it thanks to the pink alert. Now, once again, it's important to point out that this is the statement of Luis Cadiz, who supposedly helped Verdejo carry out the plan. But once the autopsy results came out, some of the lingering questions were cleared up. And not only that, but many of the findings match the information provided by this man, which made the hypothesis we're discussing much more solid. The autopsy performed by pathologist Rosa Rodriguez at the Institute of Forensic Sciences on the body of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz revealed that she was, in fact, 1 month pregnant and that her cause of death was asphyxiation by drowning. In other words, she was thrown into the water alive and died after being submerged. Additionally, toxicology tests confirmed that she was injected not with just one, but 2 substances, fentanyl and heroin, and that her jaw was completely fractured. Let's remember that Felix Verdejo is a professional boxer, so it's not far-fetched to conclude that a blow from him could have been enough to cause such an injury. Additionally, a bullet casing was found in the area near the bridge, which was collected by the authorities for the corresponding investigation. Also, at the same time, 2 firearms were seized from the boxer, both of which he had the proper permits to possess. On May 6, 2021, just 1 week after the young woman's disappearance, a federal grand jury formally indicted Felix Verdejo Sanchez and Luis Antonio Cadiz Martinez for acts that led to the murder of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz. The charges were carjacking resulting in death, 1 count of kidnapping resulting in death, and 1 count of causing the death of an unborn child. On top of that, the boxer was also charged with using and carrying a firearm during a violent crime. And really, it's the combination of all these crimes that led to something that for a long time stirred up controversy in public opinion. The case was eligible for life imprisonment or the death penalty. There are certain factors in this story that raised questions about what sentence the people involved would be facing. These include that each defendant intentionally murdered Keishla Rodríguez in a cruel and depraved manner, with severe abuse of the victim in a premeditated way, and, in addition, there was a promise of payment between both parties involved. And in that country, the legal penalties for crimes related to kidnapping and car theft include life imprisonment or the death penalty. When Keisha's family learned about this dilemma, they quickly came forward to state their position on the matter. Because Keishla Ortiz, the victim's mother, said it wasn't fair for her daughter's attacker's life to end quickly without having spent years paying for everything he did to her daughter. And for her part, Veralez Rodriguez, Keisha's sister, spoke out through her Instagram account, posting a story with a photo of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Guaynabo, where Verdejo is being held, along with the message, "I want you alive." In this way, the family made it clear that what they wanted was for this man to be sentenced to life in prison for taking the life of the young woman and the baby she was carrying. Thus, on January 31, 2022, the United States Department of Justice, since the FBI was involved in this investigation, revealed that it would not seek the death penalty in the case against boxer Felix Verdejo and his alleged accomplice, Luis Antonio Cadiz. This is a decision with which the victim's family is satisfied, bearing in mind, of course, that nothing and no one could ever bring Keishla back to them. Finally, even though Felix Verdejo has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, Judge Pedro Delgado Hernandez from the federal court in Hato Rey had set the trial to begin on June 14, 2023. But the boxer's defense requested a few more days, and the start of the proceedings was postponed until June 19th. Because Verdejo's lead attorney, Jason Gonzalez Delgado, insisted during one of the follow-up visits that, due to his busy schedule, he had not had the opportunity to adequately prepare the defense, since he is also part of the legal team in the case of the murder of banker Maurice Spagnoletti, which occurred in 2011. In fact, the defense attorney had requested that the trial be postponed until August, but the judge flatly refused, stating that the trial should have started in February 2023, but understanding the situation, had decided to postpone it. So it was no longer possible to delay the trial any further, and we finally have results now, in August 2023, as I'm recording this video. The trial finally began on June 20th. One of the clumsy attempts to distance Felix from the crime was to claim that the fetus was not his child, and that since they were not related, he had nothing to do with the crime. The reality is that a DNA test was performed on Keishla's body, but nothing more was said about the subject. After all, there was plenty of other evidence to talk about. The pathologist who came to testify was questioned about the tests performed on the body, but she said she couldn't remember what the report said about the baby's father. This opened the door to public speculation, with some people accusing Keishla of being a liar and claiming it's obvious that the family's lawyers didn't bring that evidence to trial because Felix Verdejo wasn't actually the father. Many of us, however, point out that it doesn't really matter. And no, it's not true that if he hadn't been the father, that would take away the motive for the murder. The death happened in such a way that there wasn't even time for a paternity test while Keishla was alive. Therefore, Felix Verdejo couldn't have had that certainty. So the trial wasn't easy. Alex Cintron, supervisor of forensic investigations, and the person who analyzed Verdejo's Dodge Durango, was one of the first to testify. The defense asked him if any DNA or blood had been found inside the vehicle, to which he replied, no. The prosecution, for its part, asked whether a cloth with bleach that Luis Antonio Cadiz had used to clean the vehicle could have affected this result, to which Alex Cintron replied yes. In total, there were 204 pieces of evidence. They spent almost a month deliberating whether all this collection of elements could say with certainty that Felix Verdejo was the killer. Verdejo was ultimately found guilty of the charge of kidnapping that resulted in the death of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz and the death of her child, or the unborn child, as described in the document. On the charges of carjacking and carrying a firearm during the commission of a violent act, the jury members could not reach a verdict. Federal District Judge Pedro Delgado Hernandez scheduled a sentencing hearing for November 3rd of this year, at which Verdejo could face a sentence of up to life in prison. So it's still not entirely clear what sentence he will receive, but let's hope that the possibility of a life sentence is fulfilled. After the trial ended and Verdejo was found guilty, Keishla's mother spoke a few words in memory of her daughter and stated that she doesn't want to hold a grudge, but rather move forward. Finally, it's important to highlight that Keishla Rodríguez was the first case in which the pink alert was activated in Puerto Rico, which meant that the authorities acted extremely quickly. Because of this, there were several advances in the investigation that, had things been different, might not be known today. On the other hand, as an additional note, this case caused such a stir in the country that, understandably, the career of the boxer, whom everyone proudly called the Diamond, is now practically over. From the very beginning, the promotional company Top Rank distanced itself from him and expressed solidarity with the victim's family. Even the well-known artist Bad Bunny deleted from all his social media the video of a song featuring the boxer, which was part of his album X100 Prey, as a sign of respect for the young woman's family. Well, that's where we'll wrap up this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Here are the Patreons and channel members. Thank you for supporting me through these platforms, and with nothing more to add, here's a new video for you, and here's a recommended video. You can subscribe by clicking on my face, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.